The only thing better than quarantine hair is fresh out of the shower quarantine hair. Still damp. I've really taken to cloud gaming recently, specifically with Google Stadia. I love the convenience, I love the speed from cold TV to a heated gaming session, but there's one wall I can't quite break down when it comes to dumping physical games in favor of an all-streaming lifestyle, and that wall is literally physical. In this video, I'm going to talk about why I find it hard to abandon physical video games and how I'm hoping to change that so I can embrace the cloud gaming future. Come with me. And if you can, help me. Before going any further, please consider subscribing to this channel for more video game content. I've done a lot of Stadia-focused content lately, and it's been really fun. Give me a thumbs up. That helps let me know that you're enjoying it. I believe in physical media. Divorcing yourself from a belief can be hard. Wars are fought and lives are lost because of beliefs. Remember the media format wars of 2024? You will. For me, when I want to break a habit or change a belief, I try to learn as much as I can about that thing. I learn about its history, its psychological power over me. I find that the more I understand about a belief, the easier it becomes for me to deconstruct it. And therefore, when the mystery is removed, I can disassociate myself from that belief. Now, sometimes this level of education and awareness can be a bad thing. Like when I was a kid and I learned how cartoon animation cells worked with transparent cells painted over static backgrounds. After learning this, I hyper-focused on trying to see where the animated portions were over the static backgrounds. I couldn't concentrate on the cartoon itself anymore. It was like my own little game where the increasing score measured how much I've ruined my own childhood innocence. Yeah, like that. But most of the time, breaking things down in this way is a great thing. So I dove in to learn about why I treat physical items in higher regard than digital items. And I want to share this information with you because maybe when the apocalypse comes and we all must adjust to a nomadic lifestyle to avoid being hunted by mutant cannibals, I can help you feel not quite as bad about leaving behind your stack of Game Informer magazines. But then again, toilet paper is probably going to be hard to find in the irradiated wasteland of the future Earth following, of course, the media format wars. On second thought, hang on to those Game Informer magazines. I found a scientific paper titled Digital Goods Are Valued Less Than Physical Goods. I like scientific papers because they get right to the point in the titles. This was published in 2017 in the Journal of Consumer Research. But I'm dumb, so I found an article to help explain the paper to me. The authors of the paper conducted a series of surveys and tests based on the assumption that in general, people place a higher value on physical items than digital items. In one test, they had a bunch of people dress up as historical characters. The researchers then gave physical photos of the event to some of the tourists and digital photos to others. The tourists were then asked how much they would be willing to pay, if anything, for the photos. The recipients of a physical photo were willing to pay more on average. In another scenario, the researchers asked participants about how much they'd spend on digital or physical versions of popular movies and books. They paired this with personality-type questions. Those who would pay more for physical versions agreed more strongly with the statements like, "I will feel like I own it," and "I feel like it's mine," and "Holding a clamshell Xbox case fills my veins with reverberating energy that I must hold back for fear of demolishing mountains with barely a punch and draining oceans in a single gulp." That last statement probably wasn't on the survey. Probably. In the end, the researchers concluded that physical items tend to afford a greater sense of ownership and are more enticing when there's a possible sense of connection to it. So if you have great memories playing a specific game with your dad when you were young, you might be more likely to want that game as a physical item rather than a digital item. The researchers also correlated that people who are disposed with a need for control will value physical items more than digital. But I don't believe that. I'm not controlling. In fact, I forced everyone in my family to agree that I'm not controlling. So that's science. Write a paper about that, scientists. And though the paper doesn't get into the ability to resell video games, reselling is absolutely worth mentioning. Practically speaking, my physical games do have a transferable value. I can resell them if I want to. I cannot resell a digital game, at least not legally and not in the United States where I live. But even if I could, because we've already learned that in general people value physical goods more than digital ones, it's a good assumption that the resale value for digital games would be less than the resale value for physical games. And with streaming platforms like Stadia or PlayStation Now, well, you can't resell a service. But Caleb, I hear you yelling, digital game sales have been growing tremendously over the years. That's very true. In fact, in Q1 of 2019, digital game sales eclipsed physical game sales for the PlayStation 4 for the first time. And by some measures, if you include computer game sales, digital game sales overall reflect about 80% of all game sales. What this means is that most people are better than me. My own personal hang-up with embracing digital video games over physical video games, I think, is due to the idea that a person's belongings act as affirmations of their identity. And as we learned earlier in this video, people have a stronger sense of ownership of having that item belong to them with physical media. In the same way that my t-shirts, my wall art, and bookshelves all reflect that I love games and that games are a part of my personality, the physical games on my shelf do the same thing. It's hard to surround your physical space with digital artifacts. Therefore, it's hard to be confident with your sense of self-identity. And that's probably the most helpful thing I learned in this research binge. Maybe I'm not terribly confident in who I am, and perhaps this room helps to restore my fragile ego. Or the games just look really cool on the shelf. Let's go with that one. Oh wait, I said t-shirts. Fashion show! When I look around my game room, my love of video games is showcased everywhere. But the focal point of my game room is definitely the shelf of games. I don't collect games, I just have games I really like or games I really want to play. I have a few games that are neither, but they are worth a bit of money, so I hang on to them for now. If I ever got rid of the framed art, the t-shirts, and even the books, I'd be sad, but I'd get over it. If I got rid of the games, I'd probably cry. So how will I cope with the inevitable digital future? First, I'll continue with what I'll call a transition period. I will continue to buy physical games while also subscribing to streaming and download services like Google Stadia, PlayStation Now, and xCloud, if that service ever offers a way to stream to a TV without buying the console. This way, I can get more comfortable with digital gaming. I can let it live with me, like a stray cat. And over time, I'll get so comfortable with that cat that I'll forget about its feral history. I'll start sleeping soundly, certain that this animal I've taken in and cared for won't someday kill me in my sleep. And when that cat does kill me in my sleep, my final words will be, "I told you physical games were better." Except with blood, like, everywhere on my neck and face. The other thing I'll do to cope with the inevitable digital future is actually more something that will be done to me. I believe that the forthcoming 9th generation of consoles, the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X, will be the last consoles with physical media. So the decision to abandon physical games will likely be made for me in about 5 to 10 years. If I want to play a 10th generation game, it will have to be digitally. I may as well get used to digital games now. Lastly, kind of a minor point, I think, but indications are that games will cost about 14% more in the next generation. If this increase doesn't apply to digital games, then buying the cheaper digital version through a cloud service like Google Stadia will be much more appealing. However, I'm very confident that both physical and digital prices will go up. But maybe digital sales will just happen more frequently to help offset the new price burden to the customers. I've linked below all of the articles I mentioned in this video. I've also linked a separate article called The Psychology of Stuff and Things, it's a great title, which goes into more depth about the various psychological reasons for attachment to physical objects. I highly recommend all 3 articles. So tell me, how do you approach gaming? Do you prefer one format over another? Do you wrestle with the same anxiety I have about ditching physical games in favor of digital ones? You got this far into the video, so you must like it, right? So please click the like button and consider subscribing. I don't know if doing either of those things helps with increasing the number of video views, but it sure makes me feel good.